Tonight on the Becky and Boca Show, it's Ciro DiPaggio, real-life Miami mobster and the star of MobKing the movie. MobKing the movie is now available on Amazon Prime Video as well as other streaming platforms, and Ciro has other projects in the works.
My guest tonight was not always on the right side of the law, but
on the right side of my law.
Oh, the right side of your law. Okay. I would like to introduce Ciro DiPaggio.
Hello.
You were involved in South Florida activities in the 90s, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then eventually you got a 27-year sentence for racketeering.
Yeah, that hurt a little bit.
Yeah, and you had to go to jail, but you only had to serve 19 years. I say only. That's that's a long time.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I want to give you a little background about my guest. He's the real deal, which makes this all the more exciting. My guest enjoyed a very interesting life in South Florida. It was the good life, I'm sure, albeit a bit on the shady side. This was the era when all the big clubs in Miami Beach were frequented by movie stars and pop singers and supermodels, the beautiful people. And, of course, there was organized crime in Miami like you would have in New York. Everyone from Hollywood, all the singers,
Yes.
Madonna, everybody was in Miami Beach playing in these clubs that were basically run by the mafia.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was a big influence there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that'll make it...
I've met Madonna several times, actually.
Oh, what's
Happy
she like?
birthday to me. I don't have an affinity for stars like other people do. They don't float my boat. I really could care less, But, yeah, I met a lot of them.
See, I knew he lived that lifestyle. We all know about the New York mobs, the New York mafia, but Miami Beach has the same thing. Maybe it's a little different. There are a lot of gangs and groups here, so I'll let you talk.
Miami's notorious for easy money, scams, property scams, this type of scam, that type of scam. So, when you have the lure of easy money, then you have people
You attract the people that are...
Well, then you have the people that can come along and really make the money, It's all about... Power is all about money, Miami has, it's an open territory, so it has basically every type of organization you could have here operating.
More than in New York.
New York is more structured, with their families. There's 5 families out of New York back in the day.
A little closer.
Back in the day, and, they're pretty, concise on who does what in what area and what neighborhood and what type of thing like that. Miami's completely different. People operate however they see fit, as long as you don't step on somebody's toes. Everybody knows whose flag is where, or it's easy enough to find out. But what makes Miami unique is you have every other element as well, vying for positions and stuff like that. So you have everything from Russian.
I was going to say people from other countries because there's a lot of that influence even now.
Yes, there's a lot of Russians here, and you have a predominant heavy Jewish influence as well, which a lot of people are surprised by. But,
You have a mafia?
Well, I don't know about this word mafia that you keep throwing around, but...
Okay, we won't use the word mafia.
But I can say organizations.
Family. Organization, okay.
People who work together.
Okay, so you get in with a group of people, and you start doing some sort of activity that attracts the attention of law enforcement?
I make a lot of money. It's a machine, so each step is another level, and you get on people's radars,
Mm-hmm.
And the more you are successful at it, and the better you are at it, the more accolades come with that. So I was unique in that ability to identify sources that would make money, create things that make money. It's called an earner. And then when you're an earner and you also have the ability to enforce, that creates the perfect recipe for things that can go on. The way this wonderful system of government is set up, anybody that they perceive as being aligned with anyone, they charge you with racketeering. And racketeering basically makes you responsible for anybody who's under you, their actions, so that they can get the boss. Yeah, if it's a wise guy or somebody they think is involved in a gang or anything like that, they'll charge you with racketeering, take your business, take your property, take everything from you. That's how they've been able to dismantle things over the last couple of decades and dismantle people's lives like they did mine as well.
So that's what happened to you.
Yeah. I mean, you know, the RICO law is a powerful law.
And what is the RICO law?
Racketeer, influence, corrupt organization. 3 or more people conspiring to commit the same crime over a period of 30 days or more.
Oh.
Yeah, you have to prove 4 elements. You have to have the racket, whatever it may be, strip club, nightclub, you know. You have to have the influence, which is the threat of violence over that particular operation.
Threat of violence?
The threat of violence, you know, that's where the influence comes in. And then you have a corrupt organization, something they can say is a particular, you know, gang or organization. My story is unique because, like I said, I would get phone calls and go visit people, you know, that had maybe a business or something that was struggling. And, you know, the way the system is set up, it doesn't help people who have had bad breaks. You know, if you had a foreclosure or your car got repoed or whatever the case may be, and you're trying to get some money to get started again, it's impossible for you. Nobody's going to do anything for you. So the system's in place to beat people down. The laws, you know, are enacted to stop any other type of alternatives that may be available to people who would loan you money. You know, you go and put money on your credit card and you have bad credit or whatever, or, you know, a couple dings in your credit and you're paying 23% interest. I mean, people don't realize they're so conditioned for the fact that it's okay because it's a bank when it's twice as much what you would have gotten charged from a wise guy.
Okay, so you're talking about people taking out loans
from anyone, from what the government terms as loan sharking.
Loan sharks, okay.
You know, or something to that effect where they like to charge people. Gambling, for example.
Is the interest rate better?
Yes, of course. I mean,
who charges
25% on money except credit cards, you know?
Okay.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, that's a ridiculous figure. You're getting robbed.
So loan sharking, you could go to someone, get a loan for a smaller percentage.
Theoretically, yeah.
Theoretically, yes. But what if you didn't make your payments on time?
Okay, well, you know, if you don't pay for your house, your bank will come and take your house and kick you and your family out on the street.
True.
Without even thinking twice about it. You know, you don't pay your property taxes, they'll come and take your house even if you own it.
Okay.
So these are not things that people in those businesses would have done. I mean, you always are going to give somebody an opportunity to pay you. You can't get blood from a stone. So,
right.
You know.
You want the money. Okay.
Yeah, you know, so you don't really loan money to people that don't have the ability to pay. So if someone's identified as somebody who may have the ability, a business or something along those lines, basically, you want to get in that business. You want to get paychecks coming in, legal money coming in, and stuff like that.
So you help them with the business?
Yeah, you help them with the business. You identify what can be done. Like I had told you about the one time where the feds kept cracking down on this particular operation or whatever for this organization. And I got a call. I went in, checked it out. And it was really pretty simple to fix. It was just a simple switch out of Vegas, you know, but it turned around and made over $100 million, you know.
Oh, my goodness.
And it's legitimate money.
So you are a very valuable person to these gangs.
It put me in the good graces. Well, I mean, gangs don't operate at that level, you know, really.
Okay, what do you call it?
You know, organizations, you know.
Okay, organizations. All right. So we're talking about organized crime.
Yeah, well, you know, organized, you know, operations. People have this conception of the mob that they just run around and inflict violence on normal, everyday people. Which
so normal people are in no danger from the mob?
Very rarely. That's why it's men of respect or whatever. And what people don't understand is that there's rules in everything. There's rules for police officers they have to follow. There's rules for, you know, government workers. There's rules for everybody. So if you enter into some type of agreement with, you know, a wise guy or whatever the case may be, and you agree to certain terms or certain things or certain principles or certain ways of operations, and you violate them terms or rules of operations, then there's punishments. You know, you violate society's rule, you go to court. You know, what's different with the government? If they think you did something bad enough, they put you to death. Maybe organizations have a quicker way of, you know,
eliminating a problem.
executing that type of punishment. But, you know, for the most part, people can do it because their conscience is clear. If you have to look at a guy and you have to say, I'm not saying I ever had to do any of this. I'm just simply saying, you know, in general, if something had to take place where, you know, you had to face somebody that was going to have to pay the price on something, it's simply you knew what you were doing. And
that person knew they had it coming, I assume.
Pretty much, you know, that's why they would run.
Kind of scary. Okay.
You know?
Can you run from the mob?
Maybe today some people can, but back in them days you couldn't.
You couldn't.
You know?
Oh, scary.
You have a general affection amongst the population for wise guys because they're men of respect, because they do things for people, because they go out of their way to help people. You know, the government paints a picture for you that, oh, they're these mass killers that go around doing all this other kind of crazy stuff. You know, I haven't seen a wise guy walk into a bank and say, hey, give me $3,000 with a gun pointed in somebody's face. People don't do that type of stuff. They're interested in making money legitimately, you know, however it could be to feed their family.
You were sentenced to 27 years, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That must have been very frightening when you got that decision, I would imagine. 27 years is a long time.
Didn't scare me. It pissed me off.
Didn't scare you?
No.
Would scare me. In the end, you served 19 years.
Yeah.
But can you tell us what that was like to go from the romantic South Florida lifestyle to all of a sudden being locked up and knowing you're going to be there for a long, long time?
Well, I mean, you know, prison isn't state's prison, especially. I mean, it's not club fed like people think.
Yeah, a lot of people always assume that you kind of guys end up in these posh places where
happen.
you get room
You know,
service and all that.
Yeah, I mean, your banker frauds and your stock fraud guys and all them, they end up at you know, federal camps that don't have no fences and nothing like that. But guys like me, they won't let go there. Guys they think are like me, but you know, listen, it's gladiator school. You know, when you get put in that, there's a hierarchy there too.
I was going to ask you about that. I assume the minute you get in there, you got to get the lay of the land and figure out where your position is and try to get to the top. And someone like you would probably be very successful at that.
Well, I was, and you're going to get tried on every corner. You know, I mean, when you first get in there, and you have to make your mark. You know, so how you make your mark in prison is you just start swinging.
What do you mean by swinging?
Hitting people.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And prison and the world I came from before prison was all about respect. You know, you can't allow any type of disrespect, you know, if people are going to look up to you. You know, you can't cut me at the water fountain, you can't cut me in the chow line, you can't, because I'm just going to knock you out.
Wow.
When you get out
on the way out of here.
When there's a hierarchy there's a way to make money there's a whole, you know, way of doing things in prison. Because of what I was involved in there and exposed to, and the people I was exposed to, I could have come out with a whole army of just my own.
That may have been a little tempting, but I guess you didn't want to end up back.
I definitely don't want to end up back. But it's even harder when you can just go to the phone, pick up, call somebody and say, hey, get me out of here, and you're free the next day.
And you could have done that.
Oh, I could have done it easily. Yeah,
wow.
Without a doubt. I mean...
And you didn't because?
The number one rule, you know, is you protect the guy on top of you, period.
You served the time in lieu of ratting them out.
And you know what? And that's the hardest thing about it, because doing time is difficult in itself.
I would imagine so.
And it's even worse because, you know, state prison don't have no air conditioning.
Oh, I didn't know that. In Florida?
Yeah, you're hot all the time.
Oh, that's torture right now. I can't go to jail.
In the end, you know, I want to do a show like this, or I want to tell a story like this. The people that are going to matter, you better be good with. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, you know, and I'm good with the people that matter.
Were you thinking about this when you were in prison?
I got a letter in 2004 from DreamWorks, which is Spielberg and Ron Howard.
Oh, wow, from
expressing
DreamWorks.
interest about doing my life story or whatever, and I was kind of dumbfounded by that. A couple years before I got out, I started thinking about it, and you know, I put together the concept of the MobKing.
You are starring in it. You are the MobKing, and you actually lived it.
Yes.
That's what makes it unique.
I'm in the business of creating something on what I lived in and in the way it went down and how it went down, and it's going to be as true to the nature of that as possible, but it's not going to identify people, places, or things.
Well, I think it's very exciting, and
yeah, it's pretty cool.
The fact that you're filming all over South Florida makes it even more interesting to me, and I'm sure to everyone here. It's going to be
it's
big.
a good story, you know, and I think that I pull it off well on screen. And
I'm going to be covering him. I'm going to have you back on too.
You'll be our public voice.
All right, I'll be your publicist. How's that?
That's great. I like that.
Okay, this is Ciro DiPaggio, and the show is called MobKing. Okay, so we got to wrap up here. Great interview. I had a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Okay. You have been watching and listening to The Becky and Boca Show. Tune in every Thursday night to discover all the ways to spoil yourself and have a good time in beautiful Boca Raton. See you next week.
The opinions expressed on the preceding sponsored program were strictly those of its hosts, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.